Hello, and welcome to Healing Behind Closed Doors. I am your host, Adrienne Carwheel. Tonight we have Jenita Lawal. She is a life design strategist who will join us in conversation tonight. Thank you for coming, Jenita. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. I kind of just want to hop right into it right before we got
Okay.
on this call. All right, well, that's I'm glad that you're fine with it. Um, right before we got on this call, I was talking to my daughter, and she typically, in her teenage way, is like, "Hey, mom, what's next for your show? Or who are you talking to?" And I said, "Well, I'm talking to Miss Janita." And she said, "Well, what's the episode title?" She's very interested in like technology, and she's very interested in, she thinks she's the next YouTube sensation. And I'm going to let her go with that. So it's ironic that tonight's episode is entitled, Don't Ask Me What I Want to Be When I Grow Up. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and my daughter said, "Mom, that's so right." I said, "I got it from Miss Janita because we were talking about just so many things in preparation for the show." And she said, "Mom, you could do it right now. It doesn't have to be later." So I really wanted to open up with that premise of being a life design strategist and how we got here. Like, who told us that we needed to follow this prescription that said, work
Mhm.
until you retire within these
Right.
little confines,
Right.
twice as hard as our peers as Black women, only to be left unfulfilled?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
where do you think women get that premise from that we should follow this prescription of how to be, particularly professionally?
Yeah. I will say that for Black women in particular, Black people in particular, part of it is the history, right? Because you go from not being permitted, right, to have certain jobs, to be in certain circles, and you are almost on the overlooking over the fence, right, at people who are owning businesses and being doctors and having homes and these other things. And so when you are able to, I guess, join the game, you follow what you thought was the script. Get your education. That's the way, go to college because then you can get a good job. And you get a good job and you work that good job for 20 years because that's stable income, and you buy the house. Like, so it's like the American dream, but then I think for Black people it's that respectability dream too, you know? Um, so, and then I will say for me, one of the things that drove me as a single mom, as a Black woman, was I refused to be a statistic. I
Hmm.
refuse to be your statistic. I refuse to have my children be your statistic. And so, me buying a home was really driven from proving, right? Me getting my MBA was driven from proving. Me, even in corporate America, like wearing all the hats and excelling at everything was really about proving, you
Hmm.
know? So,
Yeah. Where does proving get you?
it gets you sitting at midnight going, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
I remember, and I will say, for me, mentors and these people who have popped up in my path have been um, have been instrumental, because my mentor back in my corporate days, I was in this program called Aspire, and it was for leaders sort of emerging leaders in the company, right? And across the company, it was an international company. They chose 60 people. I was the only Black person. And I remember I contacted HR and I was like, "Am I the token?" I said straight up, "Am I the token?" I was straight up like, because I was like, if that's the case, I don't want it. She's like, "No, blah, blah, blah." And she explained, "No, you earned it, la, la, la." And so my thinking was I was going to do what I had to do to be promoted within this company, right? And the mentor that they assigned to me, which I love him, I respected him anyway. Like, he's someone I already looked up to, but he said to me, create your own opportunity. What is it that you do, right? And create your own opportunity around that. Don't try to be this, don't try to be that, but what do you do and create an opportunity? And that was freeing for me, because I started doing things that I actually cared about. Like one, I started a book club. I started these workshops. And so like personal development was a big part of that. And as I'm hosting these workshops for people, I'm also feeding myself, right?
Mm.
Because one of them was Strength Finders. And that
Oh,
was,
I love that. The gallery.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What are
So
your
that,
top five, if you don't mind me asking, if you remember?
intellection, which I was like, what is that even? But yeah, intellection is so true. Um, Developer,
Me too.
learner. um,
Perpetual learner, right?
yeah. Developer, learner, intellection. I know the other ones because it had me really rethinking. I got to go back and look. But I
Hmm.
know it's intellection, developer, learner, positivity, actually, I think is one of them. And I have to go back and find the fifth. I haven't looked at them in so long, but
Yeah.
when I discovered them, that was sort of the beginning of the end of corporate life for me,
Mm.
because I realized the things that I love to do and that I naturally like, um, it wasn't something that was always that would be supported in my corporate role. So it was sort of the beginning of the break for me. So
It sounds like a good break, and it sounds like the
yeah,
beginning of your career. You were designing your own life and your own strategy back then when you didn't even know that that was
yeah.
something that you needed to do the fulfillment. It's so
Mhm.
funny how we fall into these roles and we are naturally gifted in so many different areas and we are awarded and all these accolades only to find ourselves so empty and
Yeah.
pursuing these almost like things that just fall out of our hands. It's like
Mhm.
quicksand, just falling straight through our hands, and this
Yeah.
ever elusive goalpost
Mhm.
that we're
Share.
never able to obtain. And
Yeah.
so I respect and appreciate the fact that you were able to see it early and get out, when you did. So
Yeah.
if you could, please explain, what does a life design strategist do, and why specifically women over 40 do you serve?
Well, one of the things you learn as you become a coach, and I am a certified coach, is that you can't really take anyone deeper than you've gone, right? And I know what it feels like to be at 40-ish, right? And looking around going, so what is happening right now? What am I supposed to be doing with my life?
Mm.
Because you're no longer in your sprightly 20s, right? But then you're also not in your 60s, you're not retired. And so there's this crossroads that you're at. And if you're like me, my kids were they were closer to out of the door in theory than my babies. And you realize time is ticking, and so for me, I have a heart for women in that situation. And so I feel like I can relate and speak to them because of that, versus there are things men go through, which there are some similarities, but I don't know that I could speak to the heart of him the way that I can this 40 plus woman.
Mm.
So that for me, that's why. Um, and I find so a life design strategist, that is something that I developed through my own coach, me receiving coaching as well, because I truly believe that we are gifted with the ability to create, to design, right? And if you're willing to take up the responsibility, you can design your life, you know, and you want to be strategic in how you do that. And so my goal is to help women 40 plus to look at their lives and begin to create the design that they want to live by and
Mm.
understand the why behind it. I'm really big on getting to root, not just the surface stuff.
Mm. So it sounds like when you get to the root that you definitely have to address the mindset. There's a shift, definitely, going from the prescription and then the awareness that comes along with somehow all of this is not working out, and
Yeah.
then really getting to the heart of who we are, and then being challenged with how to be free to create, how to release yourself from the bondage. And I'm not saying corporate America is bondage for everyone, but for some people, it
It
can
is.
be. It can be
Yeah.
stifling and it can be limiting. So, how does mindset play a role in the success of someone who is looking to design their lives?
I would say so. Mindset is huge. My clients right now, they have goals, but I don't even start talking about your goals until we begin to deal with mindset, right? Because mindset can stop you from living your best life. Mindset can keep you, like you said, in bondage. And part of that mindset shift is also knowledge of self,
Mm,
because some people are great at a 9 to 5, right? Some people are great within the corporate structure. So you have to know for yourself, does this work for me? How is this serving me? Is this where I fly? And that's okay if it is, right? So the mindset shift is dealing with one, your willingness to accept responsibility for the choice of your life, right? Because either way, it's a choice and it is your responsibility. So that's the first thing. The second thing is being willing to accept that with every choice, there are positive and negative consequences. And
mhm.
so I tell people, make peace with the consequences. So when you make the choice, also make peace with the consequences. And I think if you're willing to do that, then you're ready to begin taking ownership of your life.
Hmm. That seems like a stumbling block in the sense that it is a huge hurdle, at least for me. So it sounds like I need to work on my mindset around just awareness,
Yeah.
of what limitations I have and what is possible, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think even in particular, some people have personal tragedy or they have,
Mhm.
situations in their lives where they are limited, like practically. We can talk all day long about living our best lives. And, for people who are watching, like, okay, Jenita, this is fine. We can talk about this in theory, but how do you teach people to overcome tragedy and create steps to respond to life rather than react to what's
Yeah.
going on?
I don't make light of the trauma that anyone's experienced. I don't make light of that, but part of that journey is I won't say making peace, but understanding that you may never get over it, as people say, right? Or even overcome it, but it's learning how to live with it as part of your life, right? Um, Honoring when those moments come up, but also being knowing the tools to get yourself through the moment, right? Because you do want to honor. But my grandfather passed. Oh my goodness! Now it's been a long time, but there are still moments when this feeling just comes up, or there's something my son does, and it just reminds me so much of my grandpa. And there's this sadness that comes, this longing. So I feel it. I feel the feeling,
Mhm,
right? And I honor his memory. And what I've started doing is when that comes up, I share with my boys about the moment, and I
mhm,
share with them about their grandfather,
mhm.
right?
That's
So
a
then
great
it
connection.
yeah, so then it moves from being this sadness to this gem almost. Like, let me tell you about your grandpa, your great grandpa, rather.
Mhm,
So I don't make light of anyone's trauma, and it is a journey that will take time, but it's learning how to allow yourself to feel the feeling, but then learn the tools to move yourself forward
mhm,
so that you don't get stuck. Because I think what can happen a lot of times is people get stuck in the feeling, you
mhm.
know, and don't know how to move forward. So yeah, and I will say the practicality part of it. You're right, because for some people, like for example, the life that I live, I'm able to work online. I'm do everything virtually. Well, there are people like today I met a woman who's a nurse, right? She's like, well, I don't know how I would do that. And her husband, I assume he was her husband, works construction, right? And they're, I don't know how we do that, blah, blah, blah. And so the way that my mind now works, I'm like, oh, have you thought about medical tourism? Because she also likes to travel, right? And she's like, oh, well, I was like, yeah, you can leverage your background, da, 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 da. And also, I know people who do this part time. They live here this part. And she's like, oh, yeah, because I have dogs and a horse. Da, da. So it's which what happens is when you stop focusing on all the limitations and you begin to understand possibility is endless, right? Then you allow that creative ability that we've been blessed with to take over,
Yeah.
right? And I tell my clients, don't focus on the how. The how will come, right? But if you tap into that desire, right, and get real clear about your why, right, and the what, the how comes. It is amazing how the things that will come your way, and you're like, what? So it's anyway. So part of it is removing those limitations, not seeing the limitations, but instead seeing the possibilities. There's a quote that says, what is it? To look is common, but to see is rare. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. One of my favorite quotes, by the way.
Yeah. Do you know who said that quote? We might have to look it up later.
No, I do not remember. I'm telling you, I love reading. I love quotes because I'm inspired by quotes, but I do not always remember the who. And even when it comes to the Bible, I've never been one of those people that Ecclesiastes 3:13.
Yeah.
Like I'm like somewhere in there it says
Somewhere in there,
that.
in the back somewhere. Oh, I hear you. I hear you. And now I do want to transition a little bit. You were drinking a beverage that may have not been in English. You don't have to hold it up because neither one of us have any sort of sponsorship around that particular beverage. However, you are in a location that is not in America. Is that correct?
No, I am currently in the area known as Riviera Maya.
Cool. Take me with
in
you.
Mexico.
Put me in your suitcase.
Yeah, so part of one of the things I do, right? Because in this life that I've designed, I don't have to be one thing, right? So
Yes.
I love travel, and so that intellection, the strengths. I love that word. Once I found out what that word meant, I was like, oh my God, yes, that's me, right? Because I love to have conversation and to think big thoughts and to exchange ideas with people,
Wait,
right?
that's the definition of intellection because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Keep going. Go ahead. Keep going.
But I love it, right? Because so coaching for me is natural. I coach without even, like I have to tell myself, turn it off, sis, turn it off. So coaching is a love, right? And then travel is a love, and writing is a love. And I kind of have a thing for photography, right? So if you go to my site, I have a page called I Am, and it has my travel business, my coaching business, my photography that I put out there, and it has some of my writing. And what I love about the life I've designed is that I get to touch all of those things.
Yeah.
I get to do all of those things. It's not like growing up and they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're like, a lawyer, and you're stuck with that. Like for
Yeah,
like 10
and all the
years.
student loans that come along with it too. All the debt and all the heartache. It's a lot of attorneys not working these days.
Yeah, and when you realize how much doctors pay in student loans and how long they go through like residency and all those things, and kudos to them. But the beautiful thing about the life that I've designed and what I've witnessed from others living abroad is that you can create multiple streams, right, of income based off of, I won't say your passion, because that whole working your passion, everything's not going to be a passion. There are some parts to it that are not, but you do have to like what you do. There has to be some connection to what you do. And I find that I love, like with the travel, I love creating experiences for people. I actually call myself a travel curation specialist.
I love that title.
Because
It sounds so sexy. Like, you know, not only am I a life design strategist, but I'm also a travel curation specialist.
and I love it
I love it.
because I like to curate an experience for the person. I may have sent one person to this resort, but that might not be a good fit for you,
Mm.
right? So I curate an experience for you. And I
Have
love
you
it.
been to all the places that you've sent people to? Like, have you touched
Not
it and
all.
experienced it, and then you come back?
Not all, but that's where my background in political science comes in because I'm a heck of a researcher and I have connections. And so, like Costa Rica, for example, I've not been, but I've sent like 3 groups to Costa Rica and a honeymoon couple. And it's because one, I do very good research and I have resources as a travel advisor. You have what's called destination specialists at your disposal. So you're not working alone. So I can tap into my destination specialist. And then I also sort of researching for Costa Rica, I found a private driver who became my like go-to. So like when there was something that happened with the protest, I was like, hey, what's going on? Da, 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 on WhatsApp. And he's like, oh no. And so they're able to give me kind of the on the ground news. Same thing in Jamaica. I have 2 guys that I keep in touch with. And they're my like, because I was looking at a resort and it looked great online, but I'm like, hey, what do you know about this one? He's like, no, no, sis.
Mhm.
So not everywhere, but I love taking these, I call them fam trips,
Yeah.
to get my own experience of a place. Because as I'm conducting those, I begin to think about my different clients and who would like what, like, which one would be a great fit based on what I know of them. So it's fun for me.
So I just celebrated 20 years with my husband.
I
Yeah.
saw that.
Oh, yeah, it was so
Yeah.
fun. Now,
Yeah.
someone like me who is a mom of still young children, I have an elementary age daughter and a middle school daughter. If you were curating a trip for, let's say, for all 4 of us, what would be your dream, like off the cuff? No budget.
Well, it's not my dream. It's
My
your
dream,
dream.
but
Yeah.
based on what you know, like a family of 4,
Ooh.
loves adventure, loves to travel, what would be like one of your favorite destinations that you would recommend that has a little bit of, adult fun with a little bit of kiddie fun?
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one because there's so many places. Um, I don't know, but for you guys, like I know that you like culture as well as I know you like food, right?
Love
So
food. Yeah, love food.
yeah, so honestly, and then close to home because I don't know that I'd want elementary school kids on like 7 to
36-hour
15
flight.
hours.
Nope.
Yeah,
Nope.
yeah, yeah.
As
So
much as I want to show her the world now, maybe a little later.
yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, there are, yeah, beaches in Jamaica is a really great one. It's a family resort,
Hmm.
but it's also like they have good food and it's in the grill, which I love. So like 7 Mile Beach is beautiful. That's one place. But then there, like I said, there's so many others that have that same, but I think Jamaica, and I might be biased because it's one of my favorite places in the world.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
gonna ask where your favorite place was. Jamaica. Okay, we went to
It
Negril for our
really is.
honeymoon, and we
Okay.
loved it. We jumped off the cliffs and did all that, and we said
Yeah,
every time we go somewhere, we want to bring our children back.
yeah,
So
yeah. That so yeah, Jamaica I think is to me it has something for everyone. Like there's culture. There's a place called Zimbali.
mhm.
I love it because when I went, I'm watching the guy. He cuts the grass with a machete. Okay, and
Wow.
the property is owned by the family, right?
Mhm.
And it's in the mountains. So the food that they make, it's from what they've grown, right, on that farm. And I remember laying on, they created this bamboo bench. I laid on the bamboo bench and just looked up into the jungle. Like I love Jamaica. So you have that experience, and then you have the experience of like Blue Hole and zip lining if you want that. And then you could go, and there's a restaurant called Just Natural up on the West End.
Mhm.
And these 2 women who felt like aunties to me, like seriously, And I hear Lennox Lewis, it's one of his favorite places to go, but
Mhm.
it's a restaurant that's built in the woods. And so as you're walking along, there's this table, this lovely little table, and they come find you and serve the food. And like, it's just unique. So I
Yeah.
love Jamaica. I
Yeah,
love it.
I actually just left this interview and went in my head and like pictured myself on this bamboo bench eating whatever they made off the land. So you got me sold, sis.
Uh,
You got
it
me
is
sold.
it is one of my favorite places, honestly. Jamaica, Paris, New Orleans. Um, yeah, and I'm going to say Cape Town. South Africa's hard for me, but I loved Cape Town. And it's one of the places where I want to spend a season at some point in my life. I don't know that I want to live there, but
Mhm.
I definitely want to spend a season at some point in my life.
I love talking to you because what you say is so matter of fact. You don't say, I'm the sort of person that says, maybe one day. But when I talk to you, you don't say that. You definitively say, I'm going to, I
Hmm.
get to.
Hmm.
And it's such a, like going back to that mindset for 1 second, it's real. Like what you
Yeah,
say to yourself about yourself and how you, even like season one of this particular show is the theme is affirm, how we affirm
yeah.
ourselves. And even in the little things that we say, the
Mhm.
interactions with people that we have, the dreams that we share about the most, what seemingly are mundane things, it
Yeah,
matters.
it matters. And we don't understand how powerful we really are.
Mm,
We don't understand how powerful the words we speak, even if we keep them in our head, right? We don't understand how powerful those really are. And so part of my own journey has been understanding to speak in the present, because that's really all we have,
yeah,
and to speak in the affirmative. I
yeah,
am, I have, I do. When
yeah.
I create affirmations, or if I'm having one of those days when I'm not thinking and it's not clear, I just sit and I write, I am, I have, like I do. And it's the affirmative, you know? And what that does is it removes something from being this wishy-washy, confusing thing to, they say, the universe or God, like, for me, that's
Mhm,
God, right?
mhm,
And that scripture about being lukewarm,
mhm,
right? When you're lukewarm about something, you don't really want it. You don't really want it. But when you can say affirmatively, I am an investor, it is done, right?
yeah,
And so you speak it in the affirmative and you tie it to that desire. And what ends up happening is, because sometimes, and I'll give you an example. I wrote out my definitive chief aim, or definite chief aim. If you read Think and Grow Rich, you know what I'm talking about. So I wrote it out and it scared me. My dream scared me.
mm,
Okay. And so I had a meeting with myself and I said, Self, you have a belief problem, right? I can see it. The vision is clear. I can see it. I have a belief problem, or had, right? And so I said, okay, Self, let's do a baby dream. And so I kind of dialed it back and I set the goal for a fraction of the first thing, right? And so then that happened. And it was like, okay, all right, this is real. It's like, okay, what if I believe for this? So we increased it and start, living it, and it happened. And it's like, all right, I'm ready to believe for, right?
for that original thing that I was scared of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So belief, you can have the vision. Your Back to what you were saying, your limiting belief will cause you to miss it. And
Yeah.
so you do have to address the belief thing. And if it's hard for you to believe for the huge, and they fake it till you make it, let's readjust. How about that?
Mhm.
Let's readjust, right? Understanding that this is still the goal, but we're going to get there, right, in increments. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Actionable steps that are
Yeah.
full of clarity and
Mhm.
full of like purpose as you go on those steps.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
I always think like in my life, when I trust God for something, I think of my life as like full of fog sometimes, but every single time that I have put my little foot out there to
Mhm.
step, the step is always there.
Yep.
And the next one is there, and the next one is there. Like the Lord has never left me or forsaken me or had me, lost in this fog. The fog is there. The fog sometimes represents, difficult circumstances or things that we don't understand in the present.
That's
But
right.
to know that if that is like truly like walking by faith, to say that I'm going to take this step, even though I don't see that first step. And I know it's there every
Yeah.
single time.
Yeah. I like to say that God God gives us the lighthouse and a lamp, right? So the lighthouse is this vision, and there have been times it is an assurance. I know it, right? He gives you that lighthouse, that vision, and he gives you this lamp. In between where you are with this little bitty lamp and that lighthouse is all this fog and jungle and darkness, and you don't know the road. All you can ever see are the 3 to 5 steps ahead of you,
Yeah.
right? You see that vision, you see that beacon, you know it's there, you know it's for you. But what he gives you is this lamp for these next 3 to 5 steps. We move into overwhelm and anxiety and what's it? I can't think of the word right now, but we move into that when we start trying to see beyond those 3 to 5 steps.
Yeah.
When we start wanting to make our 20-year life plan and in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me when we start digging into the how and trying to prescribe. I think of Sarah from the Bible. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
God told her, like he made a promise to her. And she was like, bro, you taking too long. So what I think you meant was this,
And something
right?
totally different. You jumped
Right.
ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Because instead of believing that, yes, this is what's for me, she got stuck in the how,
She
right?
compromised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I like to say God gives you the lamp. He's a lamp unto my feet and the
And I
lighthouse.
light into my path. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, there will be uncertainty. And there's a coach, and I forget his name, but he talks about the next bold step. And I believe very much so in what I know to be true is when you make a decision, when you decide, you then commit an action, right?
Mhm.
And if you don't, then you stay in this kind of like, oh. So decide, make an action, right? Could be it all falls apart, could be it doesn't go the way you want, but you've committed an action. So from there you readjust, you revise, you take another step,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the hardest thing for people, and I just firmly believe that done is better than perfect. Like you see
Definitely.
some of the things, like I put it out there, I'm like, okay, how do I do? I don't know how, but you know what? I know this. So guess what? I'm doing that. And it removes some of the fear that you have about the thing because you've done it, you've acted, you moved,
Just
right?
start. Just
Yeah,
start.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So you have curated your life, with the help of God and the help of your support system that you have in your life. And it has landed you in Merida, Mexico.
Yes, yes.
So, talk a little bit about what led you there and specifically why Mexico. You mentioned that you're a single mom, you're a mom of boys. How did you get there and why Mexico and get my bed ready because I'm coming? Go ahead.
Well, I tell people it was a feeling. I just knew. And so for my 40th birthday, and this is also part of why I work with women at a certain point, but for my 40th birthday, I knew I wanted to travel. I was living in Nashville and I had a good life. I had a good job. I was making a good income, bought my house. Had a nice car, all the check boxes of good life, right? Um, and so for my 40th birthday, I wanted to travel. And I went to Google Flights. In case you don't know, you can go to Google Flights. I think it's the Explore option. And you put
Mhm.
in your origination city and your dates. And it shows you flight prices across the whole world,
Mm.
right? And this little place called Merida came up, and it was 269 round trip. Okay. And I was like, oh, hey, that's a deal. Right? And so then I started researching Merida, and I was like, oh, that sounds cute. It's a little colonial city, little history. I was like, okay, that's great. I could do that. And so Rhonda, a friend of mine, was like, I'm going with you. And so I booked this little Airbnb, and she and I hopped on the plane and went to Merida. And I remember when I first got there, I was like, ooh.
You was like, is this all 269?
Yeah, well, because I had never been to Mexico, and all I'd ever seen were the on Price is Right, you go to Acapulco, and
Right.
it's all these resort places. And so when I got there, there's this little neighborhood. I'm just like, oh, okay, oopsies, right? But as we walked around and as I interacted with the people, the vibe of the city just resonated with me. And I remember we came back from an excursion, and the place where we stayed is in Garcia Jimenez. It's one of the older neighborhoods there in Merida. And it was evening, and people were just out at the park, and we're like, is something going on? I don't know. And there's food trucks. So I'm like, you stand in that line, I'll stand in this line. No idea what we're getting, right?
Mhm.
And we just hung out in the park, and then we just meandered the streets. And I remember we were sitting on what I now know as Paseo de Montejo, and a protest happened, and we're like, oh, do we need to be rescued? Right? It was the most peaceful protest. They just walked with signs and rah rah rah, and when they were done, the police closed the street and started the bicicruta, and that's where they shut down the streets, and families ride bikes up and down this main thoroughfare, and they do that every week, no special occasion. And I was
Hmm.
just enthralled by this place. And I remember sitting there thinking, I don't know if I said it out loud, but I'm going to move here. Like, I knew it. There was no guessing. It was this assurance, like, I'm going to move here. Now, my mind was like, okay, so I'll do it when I retire. Okay, so let's set this 10-year plan, right?
Mhm.
But then life started happening, and I started coaching, and it became, why not now? I
Mm.
wasn't satisfied with my job. I didn't like the way that my family time was happening with my kids, being a single mom, working a full time job, traffic, life, like all that. And I had always wanted to live abroad, but I thought because of kids, I'd have to do it when they were gone.
Mm.
And so I started moving out of why not into, well, why I couldn't into why can't I,
Mhm.
right?
How can I really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Not even, honestly, not even how can I, but why can't I?
Mm.
Because I looked at my travel business, which I've been running since 2016, and I was like, I did some math, and I'm like, okay, if I can get X number of sales, then that should be okay because the cost of living, the value of the dollar. It's like, okay, well, I can do that. I got my coaching certification, like I could do that. I got my TEFL TEFL to teach English. I could do that, right? So I started saying yes to different things, different ways to draw income because I knew that I have to feed people,
Yeah.
right? So as long as I could draw income, I didn't have to stay in the United States. So
Mm.
why not? And I looked into homeschooling my boys. So I researched that. Yeah, so I would say October 2017 is when I knew, like, yeah, I'm doing this. December is when I told the first person in my family, my cousin, and she didn't tell anybody else because I wasn't ready for anybody to poo-poo my dream yet. January 2018, I took my boys on a trip to Mexico so they could experience it. And April, I took my granny on a vacation to the mountains, and I broke the news to her. So after I told her, then I told my mom, then I gave notice at my job.
Mm.
So I quit in April 2018. Went to South Africa May 2018. Went to Essence Festival July 2018. I escorted groups of people there. Sold my house August 2018. Moved to Mexico September 2018.
Wow. Wow.
There were some bumps along the way,
I'm
but
sure. I'm sure. But it sounds like such a beautiful, purposeful
yeah,
story, you know.
yeah,
And yes, we have those ups and downs. We have those bumps in the road. We have that where we doubt if the step is going to be there when we step out. But you
yeah,
stepped out and you're still walking. So
yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
the example of just that
Okay.
bold, courageous speaking in the present, in the affirmative,
Mhm.
um, when it comes to your life. You know,
Yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
Um, so how, I mean, telling your granny that was sweet to take her to the mountains, and then tell your mama. But it's interesting how you said, I didn't want anybody to poo poo my plans.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes the people that we love the most are the ones who don't believe in us at all or don't believe in our plans, that they have limiting beliefs that they have to
Yeah,
overcome. And
yeah.
so you were strategic in the way that you shared that information, which
You
is
have to
useful.
be, because it's a seed. You know, you're protecting this little seed that you planted, right? And people can mean well. I think Jay-Z tells a story about his uncle, right?
Mm.
His uncle loved him, but he's like, you ain't gonna sell no record, you know what I mean?
$1 billion later. Okay.
Right. And it's not that, and I've had people say some things. It's not that they mean well, they mean well, but you have to. I learned from one of my church mentors, you have to eat the meat and spit out the bone, honey.
Hmm.
Like, so, and what I like to do is I consider, so you bring something to me, I'll chew on it, I'll consider. And if there's something there that I could learn from or that serves me, okay, great. Thank you for that. And if there's nothing there, thanks. You know what I
Get
mean?
it out. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's the other part of becoming the author of your script, is not accepting the story that others want to push on you,
Mm.
right? When you become the author of your script, when you become the designer, if you will, of your plan, you begin to walk in that, and you don't accept, right, what people want to come and put at your feet anymore. You're
Mm.
like, nah, that doesn't fit with the no thanks, I'm good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not in
So,
the affirmative, it's limited. It
mhm,
is jaded, sometimes
mhm,
by experiences and lack of experience and lack of
yeah,
vision and lack
mhm,
of purpose and even just the practicality. Like who packs up their whole house, their children, quits their job and goes to a
mhm.
city that they've been to twice?
Yeah,
You did. You
yeah,
did that. And
yeah.
here we are in 2021, and you still smiling. You still got all your teeth. Your edges are not snatched, and you are living. You are living.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me your favorite thing about Merida.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to say the people.
Mm.
There is
And
a
you're
there
fluent in Spanish now.
new. I'm working on it. What I will say is, I have been several times told that I have really good pronunciation. And
Mhm.
I love that the Mexican people that I interact with, they're always so sweet when I speak Spanish, and they're really patient with me.
Mhm.
And it breaks my heart because I know that that's not the experience in the US, vice versa,
Yeah.
And that was, I will say, when I first started traveling internationally, it changed me because it made me more observant about life in different places, right? Like, I remember coming back from France, and that's when I started not having stuffitis so much because, in general, they have quality stuff, not a lot of it. Like, so they don't have like a closet full of clothes, right? Not everybody.
Mhm.
And then, like, groceries, even you'll see like there's fresh fruit, and the fish man comes, and they get fresh fish and they get fresh bread, right? And so they don't go to Costco and stock up for the month on their stuff. And so when I got back, I actually started doing more just in time groceries, and kind of also just thinking about differently about the stuff that I collected. So that honestly began my disassociation with stuff. So it was
Mm,
easier. And I was listening to a podcast, Optimal Living Daily, and he talks a lot about minimalism. And so I began to release the need for all this stuff. So part of packing up the house was easy because, and the other thing, and I'm sorry, I'm probably rambling, but the other thing about stuff, my granny, I presented the opportunity for her to go back to Hawaii because she lived in Hawaii like 20 something years. And she was like, what will I do with my stuff? And some of my stuff, my stuff, my stuff. And I was like, so you won't, in my mind, thinking, you're going to give up the opportunity to go to where you're yearning to be because of stuff,
mm,
and I never wanted stuff to be that important to me. So that was part of what made it easier to make that decision and just like get rid of all the stuff. So
mhm.
yeah.
So, how is it with a Black family in a Spanish-speaking country as a single Black woman? Because I'm gonna ask the questions. Like,
Uh,
I've only been to Mexico on a cruise. You
mhm.
know, the U.S. narrative paints a very different picture of Mexico than I'm sure your lived experience as an expat is. And I would love to know the experience of a Black woman living in Mexico. Is there a community of Black women that I need to tap into when I quit my 9 to 5? I mean, what's the deal?
So for me, I will say that it wasn't finding Black community was not like it wasn't something that was on my list actually.
Hmm.
So I knew that I would probably be the only one. Like I even started like using a certain hair products because I was like, I know I'm not going to be able to get hair products, so let me try this, right? And I went. So there were things that I knew there were not going to be a lot of people who looked like me,
Hmm.
right? And so when I got here and I'd run into a Black person, they'd be like, "Hola." Hello,
Hola.
because if they spoke Spanish, they weren't Black American likely, right?
Right,
Because when I got here, people, Belize, like Cuba, like trying to figure out where I'm from
right.
because they
You're
weren't
like
used to
Nashville.
seeing they weren't used to seeing Black Americans, right?
Right.
But they're used to seeing, Hondurans, Cubans, right? Belizeans. Um, and so when I first got here to Merida, I was one of the few. But I will say in the last 2 years, and I don't know if I don't know if Trump and like all the social injustice had anything to do with it. I'm guessing it did. And then also some YouTubers, like people looking at moving. Merida is consistently one of the safest cities in Mexico.
Mm.
I think it's even on the list as one of the safest in the world. And so that's a draw for people.
Definitely
It's
a draw.
Yeah, and it's a place where you actually go to live. It's not a vacation spot like a Cancun or even Puerto Vallarta, right? It's more where you'd actually go to live, and it's very family centered. The zoo is free. There's two of them, Anamaya and Centenario, but they're both free. And there's so many events that are free before COVID. Every weekend, there's the Mexicana Noche Mexicana. I forget how it goes, but they closed. Like I said, they closed down part of the street. Bike riders, and then in the Ramate, you have the dancers going, and there's vendors. It's free.
Mm.
You buy stuff from the vendors, but yeah, and the bike is like 20 pesos an hour. 20 pesos is like $1, you
Hmm.
know? And then in the Plaza Grande, they would close down. You have shows, and January in Merida was my favorite because of Merida Fest, and there was music everywhere. There's the ballet. There's so much culturally in Merida. It reminds me a lot of Nashville
Hmm.
because of the music everywhere. And when I lived in Nashville, I used to go to, so the city does this stuff where there's different things in parks, because there's salsa dancing in the park. There's the big band dancing in the park. They have different musicians in the park and stuff. So my kids and I, we used to do that stuff there in Nashville too. So for me, it felt almost like home because
Mm,
of that. In Nashville, people were like, it was one of the first things I noticed, just such friendly people. And I get that in Merida too. The people, like the Mayan people, because in Merida, there's a huge Mayan influence. There's just a genuineness of spirit that yeah, it's different. So for
yeah.
me, yeah. What was the question? I think I just went way over.
You didn't. What was your favorite part about Merida? And
Oh,
you said it all in your response. Um, is there a place to do karaoke? Because you know that's
oh
my thing.
goodness, there is, but so I've only done karaoke. Well, let me say this: Mexican. Well, I should say my
Mexican
experience.
karaoke is different
No,
than
no,
U.S.
no. So
karaoke.
my experience of like my Mexican friends love karaoke. And if you go to someone, and there's a lot of part of what made COVID interesting is it's part of the culture to gather here, right?
Mhm.
Every holiday, everything is a reason to gather. We get food, we have beer, is what my friend says. We get food, we have beer. Like we gather, we get a pinata, you know what I mean? Because gathering and being together is such a huge part of everything. And that's why they had to like close the beach, because you get like that's what people do here. And so karaoke is one of those things that I remember pre COVID, Sunday night, no, Monday morning, 4 or 5 a.m. We are the champion, blah, 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 because the party is still going on and they're karaoke.
That's
So
my
you
kind of
can,
party.
yeah, so you can go to a house party or someone's house and do karaoke, but there are also other places to do it. So, and it's
All
fun.
right.
It's a lot
I'm
of fun.
packing my sunscreen and my portable mic. And I don't even need a bed. I'll bring a blanket and we are on our way. You are setting the example. I love
I'm
it.
telling you, I love it. And I love that I have, and anyone who moves abroad, I would encourage you not to limit your circle to just expats, but
Mm,
really make associations and friendships with locals and people who are part of the community, because I really feel like it gives you a deeper sense of the place,
mhm,
and it gives you a connection as well. Um, and that's been such a blessing to me. Like I went to dinner with two friends last week, and I learned a little bit about some Mexican history, but
mhm,
then also kind of some of the history between like people from Mexico City and people from the Yucatan. Right?
mhm. The beef.
So it's kind of like it's kind of like Southerners and Yankees. So
Mhm, mhm.
so it makes it more interesting, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I can picture how beautiful it will be. I've seen your pictures and I followed your experiences there. It definitely seems like a place that I should put on my Airbnb list of places to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I think
Definitely.
so. I think so. Yeah.
So I have just a few more questions for you, but how specifically do you encourage people to unplug from the rat race and pursue their dreams beyond the traditional 9 to 5? It sounds like travel has been that gateway for you and envisioning your life not just as it was prescribed, in this very corporate job in Nashville and having the political science background and, being a person that has lived a life that was very successful and just so, and then breaking out of that. How do you encourage others as a coach to design their lives with strategy?
Well, the first thing is for them to truly get a sense of themselves, because my story is my story, right? The travel is big, it's part of my journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? That doesn't mean that's what it is for everyone. And so a lot of sort of the groundwork is getting that discovery of self and understanding how different things serve you, right? So if you are living a life where you're doing work that's completely against your wiring, why are you doing it? What's keeping you there?
Mm,
Right? And so maybe we then make steps for you to start exploring what else could be, right? If you are living in a place living in a place where you don't like the people, you don't like the like you, it's just not working for you. Why are you there? Right?
mhm,
Where else could you be? And
mhm,
so it's really the beginning for anyone is knowledge of self,
mm,
right? And I think like for me with my kids, it's so important to me to honor their wiring. And I think so many of us have grown up and we've had to disregard our wiring
mm,
because we've had to live the script, right?
mm,
And so you turn your back on the things that brought you joy. You turn your back on the things that piqued your curiosity. You turn your back on the things where, and I know I'm working in my flow when like there's this feeling you get where there's no time and it's like you're just flow. Like there's this feeling. If anyone who's ever done something in their flow, they know what I'm talking about,
mm.
right? So it's learning how to be aware of those moments and how can you create more of that in your life, right? So again, for each person, it's a little different, but for everyone, it begins with knowledge of self.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Um, we are at the portion of our show where I like to remind our viewers to affirm themselves based on the theme of season one. So, if you don't mind, what I would love to do is some affirmations based on what I've heard from you, what I know of you, and what I think will benefit our guests.
I
So,
love it.
yeah. So if you don't mind repeating after me, we're just going to anchor some of the things that you've said. I do believe that nothing happens by chance. And I believe that there is someone that is watching, that is following the script, that has run out of ink on the pen trying to write this script and is looking to turn the page. And so it's not only an encouragement for that person, but also for you and for me to continue to walk in the purpose that God has set out for us. So
Right.
let's affirm one another together by repeating after me.
I'm ready.
I like to place my hands on my heart to steady my breathing and
Right.
to just bring focus to what um, I'm trying to say. I am connected.
I am connected.
I am worthy.
I am worthy.
I am enough.
I am enough.
I do all things well.
I do all things well.
I challenge myself.
I challenge myself.
I enjoy my life.
I enjoy my life.
I have everything I need.
I have everything I need.
There is no reason to fear.
There is no reason to fear.
Adventure has my name on it.
Adventure has my name on it.
When people see me, they are encouraged.
When people see me, they are encouraged.
I live a life of excellence.
I live a life of excellence.
All of my needs are met.
All of my needs are met.
It is my desire to serve.
It is my desire to serve,
I will do just that.
and I will do just that.
Amen.
Amen. I love all of those. I love all of that.
From my heart to yours. So,
Thank you.
Jenita, how do people get in contact with you for coaching or for travel curation? Maybe to set up a consultation with you? Tell the people all the things about what you do. Go ahead.
Well, the first place you can go is janitalawal.com. And there you can sign up for coaching. You can also, like I said, I have an I am page, and that connects you as well to my travel. but the travel site is lawaltravel.com.
Hey.
So very simple, right?
Mhm.
There's a guy, Wall Street Trapper, and he talks about making your last name an asset. So the name Lawal will be an asset. So yes,
It will be
it
an
is an
asset.
asset. It is an asset. So yeah.
Lawal is an asset, and cartwheel, even though it is cartwheel, cartwell, cartwright, cartwheelian, I'm like, it is car wheel.
Wheel, right?
Put them together. It's simple compound. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So lawaltravel.com, and they can go to your page, I am, in order
Yeah.
to connect to all of that. All right.
Yeah. And of course, I'm on Instagram. Again, very easy, Jenita Lawal or Lawal Travel. You can follow either one. Very entertaining. Uh, but those are
Perfect.
the best places to connect with me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for designing our lives tonight, just with your beautiful spirit and time, and just taking us on an adventure through your words and through your positivity. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for the invite. And I encourage everyone, travel is my thing, but take some time and dive into you and figure out what you need in order to take that first courageous step to begin to author and design your own life.
With that, thank you so much for joining Healing Habits at Home with Adrienne Carwell. See you next week. Thank you, Jenita.
Thank you.